If you're an Amazon seller in the Canadian marketplace, you might be thinking you're at a disadvantage compared to US sellers. But here's the secret. You might be running a much more profitable business than most US based sellers. Most Amazon sellers assume the US is always the best marketplace because of higher traffic. But here's the twist. Canadian Amazon sellers may actually be much more profitable despite the smaller audience. So in this video, I'm going to go over the pros of selling in Canada, the pros of selling in the US, and what the best strategy is combining both marketplaces. So in this video, I'm going to go over the benefits of selling in the Canadian marketplace and how you can combine a dual strategy of selling in both marketplaces to really drive more sales. So here's a good graphic going over exactly what are the benefits of selling in Canada. So the first thing is it's a lower cost per click. The ad cost is going to be significantly lower than the US marketplace. Second thing is less competition, fewer sellers in niche categories. Third thing is unique search behavior, so localized queries and intent. On certain keywords, you might have more search volume in Canada in comparison to the same formula or volume in the US marketplace. The next thing is higher profitability, better margins despite smaller traffic, which I'm going to go into. And the last thing is US traffic boost. Combined Canada wins with US reach can really help you grow your business long term. So here's point number one, lower cost per click advantage. The average cost per click in Canada is 0.50 versus 0.90 in the US, which is pretty much almost a double, pretty much an 80% increase in your cost per click. And obviously, we know how competitive Amazon is nowadays. So we want to maximize our profitability, especially considering all sort of Amazon fees, FBA fees, fulfillment fees, storage fees, and actual product unit cost. So in the Canadian marketplace, your ad dollars go further, more clicks for the same spend. Now, obviously, the search volume is not going to be anywhere near the US. We know this. This is why we're combining a dual strategy approach. But the less competition makes ads more efficient and consistent. It is better to hold profitable market share in a smaller market than struggle with unprofitable share in a bigger one. This is where I see a lot of brands struggle. I have clients or spoken to people in the past who are doing good revenue in the US marketplace, but they are super unprofitable. They can be doing 100K a month, but it's unprofitable because a lot of the sales are coming from PPC campaigns with the really high ACoS, up 40%, 45%. And that is not a long-term strategy for growth. So the key idea is lower cost per click in Canada means better margins per unit. Now, when combined with US advertising, you get the best of both worlds. Profitable Canadian sales plus high volume US sales. So your brand overall is still growing revenue-wise in the US marketplace, but Canada is what sort of brings that margin back for you, for your overall brand growth. So point number two, obviously, is higher margins. If we're spending less on PPC, we usually have higher margins. Fewer shoppers doesn't automatically mean less profit. Much higher now because the intent of the customers must be much higher. You have less window shoppers. Ad costs leave more money in your pocket per sale, which is what everyone wants, right? So for example, $500 in Canada often yields higher profit than $500 in the US, as Canada rewards efficiency, less wasted spend, chasing clicks that don't convert. If we're spending 80% less on a cost per click at the same conversion rate, we know we're getting a lot more money in our actual back pocket. So the key idea is every unit sold in Canada can be more profitable than the same unit in the US marketplace. So here's a good post about how the Canadian marketplace stacks up against the US. Now, obviously, it's much smaller in terms of population, like 9x less, okay? But you can use it as a competitive advantage because if we have every one of our competitors in the US marketplace so fixated on that, there's probably a big portion in the Canadian marketplace that can be attained from, okay? So competition, obviously, the total number of products is around 350 million, where in Canada it's 133 million. Now, this is where you can have a complete benefit, pricing. So on pricing in the Canadian marketplace, you can usually increase it because there is a lack of actual products in there. And we can, if our listing is strong with good reviews, good conversion rate, we can usually increase our pricing. So if you go have a look here, PPC costs are lower automatically, which I already went over all of that stuff, but you can charge more. You may have thought about simply converting your current prices in US dollars to Canadian dollars, but you can and should charge more in Canada. Now let's do a bunch of different reasons such as GST in Canada, sales tax. It's a flat fee, and pretty much the consumer already considers it before buying the product. So this is another slight difference. So now we probably spend less on PPC, and we can improve our price by like 20% possibly, and your margin will be much higher then. Now this probably all sounds too good to be true, right? This is why I consider to have a dual strategy approach. While Canadian can be much more beneficial profitably, the search volume is much less than the US marketplace. So overall, our top line revenue is not going to grow while we can stay more in profit. So you don't have to pick one market over the other. Combine, do a combination of both. US is the high traffic, high volume. We're actually growing our brand awareness, and overall growing more sales to invest back into the business. Canada can be a lower cost per click, higher margin play. So we're just trying to sustain, and we probably aren't trying to scale the revenue up super high. We're trying to have a low ACoS while having good conversion rate and pretty much getting more money into our back pocket to overall grow our business. Together, this is a balance of scale and profitability. Now, some search terms perform differently in Canada, giving your product a chance to dominate niches that are oversaturated in the US. So the search terms actually on Amazon's algorithm might have higher search volume in comparison to the US marketplace, if we use the same sample size, obviously. The search volume for a given keyword might be more in the Canadian marketplace than the US because the demand is overall more there. So consumer behavior is similar, but the ad costs are significantly cheaper in Canada. So the key idea is a blended strategy that creates stability. Canada cushions profitability while the US drives sales. So to finish off, if you spend 50% less on PPC in the Canadian marketplace and generate similar sales due to less saturation, that is pretty much 50% more profit for you. Now, what do I want you to take away from this video? Stop obsessing over raw traffic. Yes, I know when we look in the Helium 10 or Jungle Scout and we see that super amount of search volume in the US marketplace, we want a small piece of that big pie. But you have to consider it's like out there. And the cost per click is super high nowadays. The smarter metric is profit per unit. Canada is often a hidden advantage, allowing you to run a healthier, more profitable Amazon business when paired with their US operations. Combine both. Don't do one at a time, combine both. If you're starting just brand new, I recommend starting in the US marketplace because that's overall more search volume. We're trying to get more sales. We're trying to grow our brand awareness. But once you hit a level where you feel like your sales are stagnant or your actual profit going into your bank account is a little bit low, try to expand in the Canadian marketplace and focus less effort on scaling there aggressively versus just getting profitable sales. So call to action for you, test both markets, use Canada to capture high margins and the US to scale volume. Together, you'll build a more profitable and sustainable Amazon business. So let me know your thoughts about this. If you want to hop on a call with me and discuss how we can help you grow your brand, first link in the bio for our website, go over our case studies, our operations, how we work, and book a call through our calendar. Let me know if you're a seller who's already in the US and Canada marketplace and how it's pretty much working for you. Besides that, subscribe and take care.